Core Concepts really speaks to what do we believe about young people? What do we believe? And from our perspective, it's critical to define what our beliefs are, because it drives very often the decisions that we make. Okay? I'm just going to go over them really quickly. It's on page 21 in your implementation guide. Youth development is a shared responsibility between families, schools, organizations that serve and work with youth and youth themselves. Anybody ever heard of the very, very overused but very true phrase, it takes a village to raise a child? Right? Every young person has a basic motivation towards independence and self-actualization. I'm the master of my fate. I want to do this. All young people can grow and develop. Youth development is active, not passive. It places value on making intentional connections, that you actually have to reach out and touch a young person. That youth development is strength-based and not, there's one missing from up here, strength-based and not deficit-based, and that families are essential to supporting healthy youth. What we'd love for you to do at this moment is to, at your tables, talk to one another about whether or not these concepts resonate for you.
You know, I try to keep communication open with the young people, so my approach, like right in the beginning, orientation is like, listen, 6 months is a very short time to make that change. However, you know, if we work together, I will help you to get to the place that you need to get to, you know, or at least start on that track, you know, so.
About that these core concepts that you just talked at your table about are really kind of the beliefs that drive the work. This is what we know to be true. So I just wanted to hear a little bit from maybe one or two folks what resonated for you at your table. What did you talk about? What stood out to you? Anybody? Yeah, in the back.
That family is definitely the foundation.
Okay.
And essential is a great word. Essential is a great word because it captures exactly what we agree on.
So the last concept, this idea that families are essential to supporting healthy youth, really stood out to you as critical. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because oftentimes when we work with older youth, they come in and they're coming to us for a reason, and maybe depending on their relationship with their family, sometimes we distance ourselves from them. But to know that family, and whatever that means for a young person, is essential to their healthy development. That's wonderful. Yes, another thing that resonated for you.
Actually, we spent some time talking about that line too. Only we took some issue with the essential part of it. It just seems like for a lot of these kids, whether or not we want family to be essential, it's not necessarily going to be there for them in any sort of positive fashion. So we have to be able to, while family is incredibly useful, and if it's there, it's something that we should definitely take full advantage of, we need to have a way to go forward that accounts for the fact that not everyone is blessed with these privileges.
Sure. Yeah. Great. Yes. I think that's a really good point, and one of the things that's really critical about families that should be defined here is that it's much more encompassing. So young people have families that are really their peers sometimes, or their gangs, right? But this idea that this connection to kind of peers or families is really critical, and all the research shows that young people are at greater risk when there isn't that family or community. So I think one of the things you raised for us is thinking about different language to use so that it's more inclusive.
Wonderful. Yep, in the back.
Thank you.
Sandra's giving everybody now. Yeah.
Briefly, the top bullet as well, because we are that resonated with me. The top bullet would have said shared responsibility between families, schools, and organizations, because we got a school in it that we in partnership with literacy partners. But then I think, as you was talking about redefining the term families or broadening the term itself, like how will we, you know, as an institution, incorporate that? Whereas when we identify that his mama and daddy ain't the family, it's Pookie and Leroy. How will we reach out to Pookie and Leroy? Because they have influences over our cohort members. So we need to incorporate that into the life coaching or case management as well. So I totally concur with her when she talks about broadening the term or even change the term, like find another word. I don't know.
Great.
Thanks.
Great. Wonderful. Anybody else? What stood out? What resonated for you? Yeah, here.
What I was going to say is that I think that the first bullet where it talks about shared responsibility, family, schools, organizations, and whatnot, for me, what stood out the most was that a lot of times getting the young person to be receptive to this concept. Because a lot of times what I've seen is that young people have a perception, because of all the things maybe that they've gone through, traumatic experiences and whatnot, that they don't need anyone. And getting them to embrace this concept and making them feel safe that this is okay makes it that much more difficult sometimes, because we know this and we understand this, but getting them to embrace it and accept it and be comfortable with it is the biggest challenge.
It's one of the challenges. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of my work is with GED, or now we're calling them high school equivalency programs now, right? And when it comes to schools, young people coming back into HSE programs, there's a lot of kind of resistance. I've had a negative experience in school, so why would I come back and if this is just the same, then that's not going to work for me. So some of our work with young people is to kind of deconstruct some of that, create alternative experiences, be the ones that help them to kind of navigate different systems, kind of be the glue for them. But I love that you raised that, because it comes up a lot. Tanaja, one more.
So there's actually like the two bullets about youth development being strength-based and not deficit-based. And then also every young person has a basic motivation towards independence and self-actualization, because I think that's the foundational strength. Sometimes, you know, when you deal with young people's behavior and like the surface behavior that they throw at you, sometimes we forget that, like, you know, that, yeah, there's tons of deficits, and, you know, we're in the business of helping young people deal with their deficits, but you have to always remember to pull a strength out of something, you know? And sometimes the strength is like, you know, yeah, they might be like drug dealing or in and out of jail, but that young person like wants something that they can do, and they want to be seen as good at something, you know? And so then like you create, for me, that helps me create opportunities for young people to shine. You know what I mean? Like give them, they'll know this, feed you sandwiches forever and ever so that you can put up a good argument for why you shouldn't be eating sandwiches every day, is like what I like to do to new young people. But that's it, like find ways for young people to feel good or to achieve something, and then you'll get strengths out of them that way.
Okay, one more and that's it. Okay, go ahead.
This didn't initially resonate with me. Every young person has a basic motivation towards independence and self-actualization. I think what we're doing is we're meeting individuals who are juxtaposed between things that have always been done for them and wanting to do for themselves. So I think it gets a little confusing and scary for them. Because initially when I read that, I'm like, does everyone really want to be independent? And then I really started to think about it, and just it's individualized, right? Like independence for me, for someone who's mental or physically disabled, might be able to feed themselves, you know? So maybe it's not full independence, like independent woman or something like that, but just moving towards, I think towards was the key word. But I do feel like it's hard for them to balance the line between, or to transition between things that have always been done to them, whether they're positive or negative, and then to be able to do it for themselves.
We're going to talk in a bit about resiliency factors and how you help young people to do some of this. But what I think about when I see that second bullet is this idea that we want to meet young people where they're at, right? And that your young people are going to come in at different places, and that we want to meet them with each individual where they're at and maintain high expectations. And that's the challenge of our work, right? Okay, so how did it feel to talk about what you believe about your work? Anybody? One or two? How did it feel to sit and just think for a minute? Do I really believe this? What stands out for me? How did that feel for you? Was it easy? Is it hard? Do you do this a lot? It was challenging? Okay, tell me about that.
I think to look at these core concepts and remember that they're all from a strength-based approach is very interesting, seeing that a lot of the things that we see on a day-to-day basis are contradictory to that. And I kind of think of these concepts more as reminders that I kind of have to keep always in the back of my mental Rolodex to remind me that regardless of what I see happening in front of me or the behaviors that I notice that are happening on a consistent basis, that there's still always an opportunity to find something positive out of it. It just challenges me to dig deeper and to go a little bit harder and to find more creative ways to do that, which is not always easy and can be very taxing and draining, but also all the more rewarding on the other side.
Great. So it is hard sometimes, and a lot of our days are so packed. You guys eat lunch on the fly, if you get it, right? It's all about activities, getting attendance listen. And so we wanted to just give you this moment here to just take a pause. Why do we do this work, and what do we believe about this work? Because it really is our beliefs that shape how we act and how we interact with young people. So I loved how you said that these are really great reminders, right? Some ways to kind of check in with myself. Am I operating from these beliefs, and how am I showing that to the young people and my colleagues that I work with?